Hello! Today we're going over the key rules and knowledge for obtaining and operating a chauffeur license in Michigan. Stay focused, and let's begin. What agency issues the chauffeur license in Michigan? Michigan Department of State. This is the official licensing authority. Let's continue. What is a chauffeur license in Michigan? A license required to operate a vehicle for hire transporting passengers for compensation or to drive certain commercial vehicles. This applies to professional drivers. Next question. What is the minimum age to obtain a chauffeur license in Michigan? 18 years old. You must meet this minimum age requirement. Let's move on. What vehicles require a chauffeur license in Michigan? Taxis, limousines, vehicles for hire, school buses, and certain vehicles transporting goods for compensation. These vehicles involve paid transport. Next point. What is the difference between a chauffeur license and a CDL in Michigan? A chauffeur license covers for hire passenger and light commercial vehicles, while a CDL is required for vehicles over 26,000 pounds or carrying hazmat or 16 or more passengers. Know which license you need. Continuing. What documents must a chauffeur license applicant present in Michigan? Proof of identity, social security number, Michigan residency, and applicable medical documentation. Documentation is required at application. Next question. Is a vision test required for a Michigan chauffeur license? Yes, a vision screening is required at application. Vision is critical for safety. Let's continue. What is the minimum acceptable vision for a Michigan chauffeur license? 20/40 in the better eye with or without corrective lenses. This is the minimum standard. Next point. How long is a Michigan chauffeur license valid? 4 years. Renew before expiration. Let's move on. What is the BAC limit for a Michigan chauffeur operating a for-hire vehicle? 0.08%. Driving under the influence is illegal. Continuing. What is the BAC limit for drivers under 21 in Michigan including chauffeurs? 0.02%. Very strict limit for younger drivers. Next question. What is the Michigan zero tolerance law for drivers under 21? Any BAC of 0.02% or higher results in license sanctions for drivers under 21. Zero tolerance is enforced. Let's continue. What happens to a Michigan chauffeur license after a DUI conviction? License is suspended or revoked depending on the offense and prior record. Penalties are severe. Next point. What is the implied consent law in Michigan as it applies to chauffeurs? Any driver on Michigan roads consents to chemical testing if lawfully arrested for OWI. Refusal has consequences. Let's move on. What is the penalty for refusing a chemical test in Michigan? License suspension of 1 year for first refusal and 2 years for subsequent refusals. Compliance is required. Continuing. Does Michigan require a criminal background check at the state level for a chauffeur license? No, the state does not require one, but municipalities and employers typically do. Requirements may vary locally. Next question. What is the speed limit in a school zone in Michigan when children are present? 25 miles per hour. Always watch for children. Let's continue. What is the default speed limit in urban areas in Michigan? 25 miles per hour. Urban driving requires caution. Next point. What is the speed limit on Michigan freeways for passenger vehicles? 70 miles per hour. Follow posted limits. Let's move on. What is the speed limit on rural expressways in Michigan? 65 miles per hour. Speed may vary by location. Continuing. What must a chauffeur do when a school bus has red lights flashing and stop arm extended on an undivided road? Stop in both directions and remain stopped until the arm retracts and lights stop. Children may be crossing. Next question. On a divided highway, must a Michigan chauffeur stop for a school bus in the opposite direction? No, only vehicles on the same side must stop. Dividers separate traffic flow. Let's continue. What does Michigan law require when passing a stopped emergency vehicle with lights activated? Move over one lane or reduce speed to a safe and reasonable level below the posted limit. Protect emergency personnel. Next point. What is the correct action when an emergency vehicle with sirens approaches? Pull to the right curb stop and remain until it passes. Yield immediately. Let's move on. How far must a Michigan driver follow behind a fire truck responding to an emergency? At least 500 feet. Maintain safe distance. Continuing. What following distance is recommended for a chauffeur in Michigan? At least 3 seconds under normal conditions, more in poor weather. Increase distance when needed. Next question. What is Michigan law on handheld cell phone use while driving? Handheld cell phone use while driving is prohibited for all drivers. Stay focused on the road. Let's continue. Is texting while driving prohibited in Michigan? Yes, for all drivers regardless of age. No distractions allowed. Next point. What must a chauffeur do if a passenger becomes threatening? Pull over safely, ask the passenger to exit, and contact law enforcement if needed. Safety comes first. Let's move on. What is required if a Michigan chauffeur vehicle breaks down with passengers aboard? Move safely off the road, activate hazard lights, and ensure passenger safety before calling for help. Protect your passengers. Continuing. What does Michigan law require regarding seatbelts for all occupants? All occupants in all seating positions must wear a seatbelt. Seatbelts save lives. Next question. What child restraint requirement applies in Michigan for chauffeurs transporting children? Children under 8 must use an appropriate child safety seat unless over 4 feet 9 inches tall. Follow child safety laws. Let's continue. What is the correct stopping distance rule for a Michigan chauffeur on wet roads? Increase following distance to at least double the normal distance. Wet roads increase risk. Next point. What is the recommended hand position on the steering wheel for professional drivers? 9 and 3 for maximum control and airbag safety. Maintain proper control. Let's move on. What should a Michigan chauffeur do at an uncontrolled intersection where two vehicles arrive at the same time? Yield to the vehicle on the right. Right-of-way rules apply. Continuing. How far from a fire hydrant is parking prohibited in Michigan? 15 feet. Keep access clear. Next question. How far from an intersection is parking prohibited in Michigan? 20 feet from a crosswalk. Do not block visibility. Let's continue. What is Michigan law regarding right turn on red? Permitted after a complete stop if no sign prohibits it and the intersection is clear. Always check before turning. Next point. What must a chauffeur do before changing lanes on a Michigan highway? Check mirrors, check blind spots, and signal before moving. Be aware of surroundings. Let's move on. What is hydroplaning and how should a Michigan chauffeur respond? Loss of traction from water under tires. Ease off the accelerator without braking hard. Stay calm and reduce speed. Continuing. What should a Michigan chauffeur do if drowsy during a shift? Pull over at a safe location and rest before continuing. Fatigue is dangerous. Next question. What does Michigan law say about smoking in a vehicle when a minor is present? Smoking in a vehicle with a child under 16 is prohibited under Michigan law. Protect minors. Let's continue. What pre-trip check must a Michigan chauffeur perform before each shift? Check fluid levels, tires, lights, brakes, mirrors, and ensure the vehicle is clean and safe. Inspection prevents issues. Next point. What does a yellow flashing light mean in Michigan? Slow down and proceed with caution. Be alert. Let's move on. What does a red flashing light mean in Michigan? Stop completely, treat it as a stop sign, and go when safe. Always come to a full stop. Continuing. What is the Michigan law on passing on a 2-lane road? Pass only when a dashed yellow line is on your side with clear visibility ahead. Do not pass in unsafe areas. Next question. How many feet before a turn must a Michigan driver signal? 100 feet. Signal early. Let's continue. What is the penalty for reckless driving in Michigan? Fines up to $500, up to 93 days in jail, and points on the driving record. Serious consequences apply. Next point. What must a Michigan chauffeur do when involved in an accident with injury or property damage? Stop immediately, render aid, exchange insurance and license information, and report to law enforcement. Follow proper procedures. Final question. What is the Michigan point system threshold that can trigger a license suspension? 12 points within 2 years. Too many violations lead to suspension. That's everything for this session. Review these carefully and you'll be well prepared for